Dardo is a Tier 1 battle rating 3.7 Italian destroyer. It's the second ship in the Italian Blue Water line, coming after the reserve Turbine, which is the only option to unlock at the beginning of the tree. Dardo is one of the 4 ships of the Freccia-class destroyers, the first of which were initially commissioned in 1931. Strale was beached in June 1942 and destroyed by torpedoes from HMS Turbulent. Seta was sunk by a mine in February 1943, Freccia was sunk by bombing in August 1943, and Dardo was scuttled by the Germans in April 1945. In War Thunder, Dardo's primary armament is 4 120mm 50 caliber and Saldo Mod 1926 cannons split into 4 dual turrets. These turrets have a rotation rate of 20 degrees per second, which is pretty high, making the ship particularly responsive. They also have a peak fire rate of 8 shells per minute, which is relatively slow. The dispersion is interesting, having a tight vertical spread but the worst horizontal spread of any main destroyer gun. This means that it's good at getting hits against broadsiding targets, but it struggles to get hits on specific sections of a ship or against very small targets. The 120mm cannon gets 3 shell types: HE, APCBC, and HETF. All of these shells have a very high velocity of 950 meters per second. The HE shells are pretty standard, not much to say, but they do their job against unarmored targets. The APCBC shells only lose about 20% of the explosive filler of the HE shells, but have quite a lot of armor penetration, making them statistically excellent for their type. It's pretty difficult to hit ammo racks with the poor vertical dispersion of the shells, but against armored American vessels like the Fletcher and Sumner, they provide much more damage output than the HE shells. Last comes the HETF ammunition, which is again pretty standard. It can be helpful for killing torpedo bombers that come in on obvious approach angles, but the poor precision of the cannons makes it difficult to hit anything outside of close range. For secondary cannons, Dardo gets 2 40mm pom-poms and 4 13.2mm Breda machine guns split into 2 dual mounts. The 40mm cannons are great at taking down aircraft and small coastal vessels at close range, with a single cannon being able to get onto a target at a time in a broadside. However, this does leave the ship vulnerable to frontal attacks, as it doesn't have a 40mm that can fire forwards. The 13.2mm machine guns aren't great due to their relatively low damage output, but it can occasionally destroy an aircraft that gets too close to the ship. Overall, Dardo's anti-air capabilities are alright. Nothing outstanding, but good enough for its battle rating. Last for Dardo's secondary weaponry comes 6 SI-270 torpedoes. These torpedoes have good stats overall, but the low number carried and the volatility of carrying them are some notable downsides, so whether or not to bring them comes down to whether or not you like using torpedoes personally. For survivability, Dardo has 7 hull segments and 185 crew along with no notable armor. It goes down quite quickly in combat, it's just below average at taking damage. Lastly, in mobility, Dardo has an above average top speed of 70 km per hour. It's minor, but helpful. For overall playstyle, Dardo is generally pretty good at everything. The high velocity of the cannons and the tight vertical spread of the guns makes it easy to get hits at long range, and the overall damage output is good for a 3.7, along with it being able to punch above its weight with its above average APCBC shell. At close range you can bring the above average torpedoes to bear and get rid of the negative effects of its poor horizontal dispersion. The biggest strengths of Dardo are its damage spread and powerful armor-piercing shells. Against most targets, just aim to hit the center of the ship. The horizontal dispersion will spread damage out over the entire ship rather than just a single centralized spot, which can make it seem to deal damage far faster than it does on paper. The APCBC shells can possibly be used to destroy the ammo racks of enemy ships, but that's difficult to do outside of close range, so I'd only recommend using it against armored destroyers or cruisers. The largest weaknesses of Dardo are quickly getting outclassed in up tiers and struggling to hit small or bow-on targets. In up tiers, ships quickly get more powerful and outclass Dardo quite easily, which means that it's an uphill battle to fight anything of a higher battle rating. Against smaller targets or those presenting a small profile, Dardo's inaccuracy can make it difficult to score even a few hits, making it relatively easy to counterplay if a player knows its strengths and weaknesses. So, is Dardo worth picking up? Well, if you're playing Italy, you don't actually have a choice. There's no alternative to picking it up, as there's only a single nonlinear choice in the entire tech tree. But I would say that it's worth getting. It's cheap, easy to unlock, and pretty good. For modification order, I would recommend toolset, fire protection system, 120mm APCBC, rudder replacement, shrapnel protection, ventilation, propeller replacement, and engine maintenance. For crew skills get leadership, main caliber reload speed, crew interchangeability, fire prevention, ship control, and time fuse set accuracy. Thank you for watching.